Here we go. G'day, Shinno. Welcome aboard, mate. We are recording, so you can finish eating your snacks. And
I am. You might have noticed I've been having a different snack the last couple of. These are these little I don't know what they are, little apparently pea flavoured things. They're quite nice.
Yeah. No, it sounds great. I'm a little jealous. Tracy and Abby are up the shops as we speak, so hopefully they bring something nice like that.
Yeah. Well, I've rushed home, as you know, and just
I know.
find it, and then we'll generally have dinner after this, so I'm a little peckish. So.
No, we tend to have dinner lately, but I've been out all afternoon working, which
It goes against the grain, doesn't it?
Well, I did actually say to someone today, I reckon I could get my work done in 3 hours a day if it came evenly and if I concentrated on it. But the fact is, it just does not. It never arrives evenly, and I don't concentrate hard enough on things. So, in both cases, I'm my own worst enemy. In that respect, but that's okay. We deal with that. So look, let's get into it, mate, and tell us what you are drinking.
Mate, I'm drinking. Well, let me just turn this down so we don't get any feedback. I'm just going to see if there's any.
Yes.
If anyone's tuned in, or if anyone tuned in at any stage. But look, as you know, I was really running the door again this afternoon, and the biggest. I was down visiting a store way south of the river, and not known probably as craft beer country, you must say.
No.
And probably, and I appreciate your efforts in trying to find somewhere for me to go.
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of those places weren't that close to where you were.
No. So it really is. It's the heart of bush chook country where I was essentially. So I think I've done something out that vaguely resembles a craft beer. It's called Parrot Dog. It's an XPA and it's from New Zealand. So let's see how this goes. It just says XPA follows. I can't even read this fine print with my glasses. It's that fine. Pale body, positively humming with tropical and stone fruity hop notes.
So
let's see.
Now, I'm going to be ignorant here. I know what most things stand for. I'm assuming when I see an XPA that it's an extra pale. Is that?
Yeah, correct.
Are we correct there?
Yeah. So that you can see there.
Oh, yeah, that's very pale. Yeah.
Actually, from its tones, it is very pale. So.
Okay. Well, hopefully the beer is fine as well as the print on the can. So,
could we therefore presume that 4X is extra shit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I put something to you this afternoon. I know I'm waylaying your drink because your drink's a very interesting drink, so it's worth waiting for. But I did put to you this afternoon, didn't I, whether we should trial some of the Australian standards on a show, such as a bit of bush chook, maybe some VB and some 4X. And you didn't seem overly excited by the prospect.
I'm actually open to the idea of having a can of bush chook with you, because I have a theory, and a little while back, my mate Pete, who generally loves to watch, we were playing in an AFL Nines team socially, and one of the other teams had some bush chooks after the game one night and offered us a can, and I am a bit of a beer snob, I will admit, but when it's a can of that or nothing, I will tend to take the can of anything. And I tasted it, and actually what I did then the following week was I went and bought a block for after the game the next week, because it wasn't actually that bad. And I tend to believe, and I'm not a big lager drinker, so obviously exports a lager, but I believe it's a little sweeter than it was.
And what you remembered it, or you think they've changed the recipe somewhat?
Well, there's the there's the rub, isn't it? Have they changed the recipe, or did it just taste like that before and my tastes have changed or whatever? But I find it quite sweeter tasting beer. But that said, I don't drink many lagers, so...
No, that's interesting. We've also just had one of our top fans, Simon Johnson, obviously our original top fan. It'll be interesting, Simon, maybe next week you can grab yourself a can of Bush Chook as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll all do a tasting of Bush Chook, and maybe we'll do that and a craft beer. So we'll have a Bush Chook.
Oh, just in case. Yeah, well, next week...
In case, as a backup.
We should say that this week, because you would have been laughing. No, next week we'll go the Bush Chook, and we'll see... we'll see what else. Yeah, maybe we'll have a craft beer.
But mate, what have you got there?
Well, I've got a Pirate Life, Loose Lips Sink Ships, and I saw this on the Perth Beer Snobs thing. I didn't realise until I bought it that it's 12%. There is 4.7 standard drinks on this. So I just want to explain, I know Coach Tony will be watching, perhaps not live, but certainly later on. If I'm running a little slow tomorrow morning when I join the crew, this bad boy will be to blame. So I'm not sure. The colour looks beautiful. I have poured it. I'll just take a sip. Well, look, cheers. Cheers, you know the colour of it, by the way. It's
look at it. Look, put it next to mine.
Yeah,
look at that.
Right. Yeah.
Jeez, considerably, yeah.
And yeah, you can taste the strength of it, which you would expect at that rate. So anyway, we'll have a review at the end of it, but let's rock and roll, mate. Tell me what gets your goat,
mate. You know what gets my goat at the moment, and I'm going to tie this in with those of you who may or may not know. It's NAIDOC, traditionally NAIDOC week this week, which is
now. Can I just check? Is it NAIDOC week because it's the anniversary of the 1967 referendum? Is that?
Oh, look, that's a part of it. It's all linked in. I think originally it was off what they called Aboriginal Mourning Day, which was back, I think, even as early as 1938. And that was early July, but they have tied that all in together.
Right. Okay.
So essentially, it was originally NAIDOC, National Aboriginal.
Right. And the I is for Islanders?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, correct. So, so that's altered over time. But look, what gets my goat, and not just now, but all the time, is when people make racial remarks and then brush it off, as if it doesn't matter, or as if as soon as they can feel a little bit of heat, they retreat. But you can sense that those people would very readily, in different company, go off on a different path. Racial profiling as well is a big part of that too. So that are things that really get my goat.
Yeah, and look, there's been a little bit of this recently. I mean, I think our one of our favourite wankers, Sam Newman, has had to deliver an apology to Nicky Winmar, and I can tell you, having read the apology, it's pretty weasel wordy. But you're right. There is a tendency, I think, and mate, we grew up in probably a different time, and I'm assuming our kids will be better at this.
I hope so.
But certainly sometimes you feel, or someone will say something, and it's just between you and them, and then you go, okay, well, then I feel bad hearing it. Somebody says, and I'm not going to say, but I know what you mean. But I feel a little bit bad for then going, well, geez, is it my job to try and educate this person to tell them off?
No, you're right.
I feel that's bad. But
I understand that. I think
it
that's
can
a
be
general
uncomfortable.
consensus. Yeah, you do. You feel. I certainly feel. I feel offended when I hear it. Obviously, it's not directed at me. I feel like I want to do something, but I don't know what to do because you kind of feel it's ingrained. And you could have that simple conversation and offend that person in the process, and they're potentially not going to change. So it's a whole broader education.
Well, I think it comes back to that old "I'm not racist, but." So the person would like to think that if they were employing someone, they wouldn't see their colour, they wouldn't necessarily avoid shopping with that person or whatever else, but yet it's still maybe acceptable to make a slightly what I'd call a casually racist joke amongst non-racial company, I guess, and then go, well, okay, if you think that is acceptable, are you then subconsciously, say, avoiding the Indigenous person's checkout at the shops? Are you subconsciously taking more of a look at the Indigenous kid wandering along the street versus the group of white kids, or the group of people who moved in down the street who are from a different background or whatever? Mate, I don't think these things get solved overnight because, as I mentioned to you before, I mean, I grew up the son of a police officer, and
things were very different.
I would argue that, if you ask my father and his work colleagues, they would say that, no, they're not racist, but they've seen a lot of crimes committed by, ethnic groups and so forth. So that they would probably defend what we now see as racism, and not necessarily think of themselves in that way. So what I'm trying to lean towards here is it's a pretty tough subject because, as you say, you may well end up having a conversation with someone that all it does is cause an argument and not change anyone's mind. So I actually...
Sorry, mate. So what I've seen, though, I think is spot on too. I think it's a generational thing where previous generations, racism was seen as making blatant remarks.
Yes.
Blatant and offensive remarks.
And that it was possibly okay to be a little racist at home whilst you were amongst your own cohort.
As long as someone who was going to be offended didn't hear it.
Yes. How can you be offended if you didn't hear it? Yes.
That was probably the belief back in the time. But as we all know now, racism is so much more than that. So it's actually, we talk about racial profiling, which is probably a term that's only come about in the last, 10 or 20 years, where it's more than that. And actually, I got this off before. This is really, I suppose, racial profiling, I suppose. So racial profiling is the act of suspecting or targeting a person on the basis of assumed characteristics or behaviour of a racial, ethnic, religious or cultural group rather than on individual suspicion. Yep. So essentially you're picking out characteristics, you're assuming they're going to behave in a certain way because, number one, they are a certain skin colour from a certain cultural background or a certain religion or so. So essentially you've got your blinkers on, and you're not treating people with the respect they deserve and giving people an opportunity. You've already you've cast them as a villain or of somebody who's going to act in a particular way before you've given them an opportunity to act either way. So
now let me put this to you in another way. And I heard this just recently put to me. Now I have been in the past quite willing to call out bigotry and racism, even amongst friends. And I've lost friends over this on Facebook and the like.
Me too.
So I have been, but recently I was listening to a podcast and it was put on that podcast, put to me, I guess, if you like. I heard the argument that calling an individual racist is almost backward and counterproductive because at the end of the day, A, they don't believe they're racist. They're probably not outright racist in the complete sense of the word. That you're better off concentrating your efforts on eliminating systematic racism. So, for example, me calling my friend in the street that I've run into, and he's had a little off-kilter joke about the local whatever, the local takeaway restaurant, let's say. Now, there's very little to be achieved by calling that person a racist. The achievement has to possibly come by removing systematic racism, as in where things come down. Now, I'm probably not explaining it. The person who was explaining it was far more eloquent than I. But it's just we're possibly wasting our breath in that respect. And I don't want to dwell on it because I guess people didn't.
No, I think a large thing too, mate, is not up to the educator. It's not up to you or me always to have that conversation. Sometimes it's how we respond. So if someone makes a remark to anybody, if you allow it to fall on deaf ears, or if you allow not to respond to it, and let them know through your lack of response.
Yeah, like that's not funny.
That's not funny.
Yeah.
I don't
and I've had some of my old jokes from when I was a kid that I've been telling for years, and you go, geez, hang on a second. And my own daughter will call me out on it. Dad, you can't say that anymore. And I'm like, you're right. And it is a constant learning process that now look, that kind of leads me to what gets my goat. And again, something else I heard today and something else I was looking at. How, and I'm glad it's NAIDOC week, but how white is football commentary? Right? So we have a situation where absolutely some of the best players in the game ever have been first Australians, Indigenous. And I mentioned Nicky Winmar earlier. There's a statue. There is precious little commentary on either Foxtel or free-to-air TV of our Indigenous game, as it's called, by Indigenous ex-players. Now, it is very simple for an Australian male bloke to become a commentator. And look, I'll extend this to women as well, right? There are very few women commentators, and one in particular, now I'm going to get her name wrong. Is it Daisy?
Yes, it is.
No, it's Neverling Meadows, who's very good. No, I'm talking about Daisy, and she's the boundary rider.
Yes, yeah, and she plays
in the FLW.
In the WAFL,
yeah. I'm terrible because I haven't got her name right, and I should have done my research here. But I still remember watching, and I've watched it again since, the 2018 grand final, where she picked up that Buckley had changed the tag from Shuey to Yo, and because it was doing nothing, and both Yo and Shuey got off the chain. Now, she picked that. None of the other guys in the commentary box picked that. Now, 2 years later, Jobe Watson, who stumbles over his words, is a arguably disgraced Brownlow medalist, right? Waltzes straight into the commentary box as a special comments man, and she's still down on the boundary. And then you go, okay, she plays the game currently at the top level and has more insight in her short time that she gets a run than this bloke manages in a month. And then you go, okay, where is her? And then where are the Indigenous players? Stuart McAdam gets a run when they play a game up in the Northern Territory. The Marngrook footy show was a fantastic footy show, but it's gone.
Yep.
And I'm going, they persist with guys. I mean, Wayne Carey, I'm sorry, but if you had done half of what Wayne Carey has done in your life, you would currently not be working in the position you have for your employer, but collecting the trolleys out the front. Right? So you cannot tell me that there is not a talented Indigenous ex-footballer who could give a bit of insight into the game.
Absolutely.
And they are just underrepresented.
And not just insight, but perspective, as you said, because I think you look at employment within Australia. I think Indigenous employment makes up about, I think it's 2.8%. Whereas you look at Indigenous employment in the AFL, I don't know the percentage, but it'd be more than 2.8%.
Well,
it would likely
each club would arguably have 3 or 4 Indigenous players on their list.
Yeah. So it would
on a list
likely
of
be double
50,
that. So you might be up towards 7.5% or triple that figure. So why not have a fair representation at other level?
But here is another thing, Shinno, right? We love them when they play good footy, and I'm going to say we love them when they play good footy, right? But when they tell us that they might have been the victims of racism, or they point out our racism, they hold up a mirror, don't we turn on them?
And not only that, if they step out of line once, they go out and have a drink, and they get caught for doing so, they get dragged over the coals, far more severely than what many other players will experience.
I think so. They're held to a higher standard, but here's the point. I think. Look, we've obviously been a long time on this, and perhaps it's. But look, and you could argue. Look, well, the argument might be maybe there's none that have wanted to be a commentator, but I really can't buy that.
No,
I cannot buy that.
But that comes down to engagement, Bish, and that's a big part of what I do. Is that you can have a similar argument in the workplace, saying, well, maybe a lot of Indigenous people don't go and apply for work, but that's because of years and years of, I suppose being depressed.
Yes.
So really, it's up to us as a society to engage more, to make everybody feel invited and make everybody feel as though opportunities are open.
But here's the other thing. We will be richer for it. Because if we can get an understanding of the magic that some of these blokes play with, the insight into their mindset, we have to be better for it. And let's face it, BT and Bruce McAvaney and Joe Watson, like, surely the commentary would be better. Surely it would have more interest. I get the fact that they're going to necessarily stick with former players because that's how commentary rolls. But let's just cast the net slightly wider than the old white boys club. So that interesting when you mentioned Nato. I couldn't agree with you more. But that's what's been sort of getting my goat, and it just recently that we just get served the same thing, and we keep taking it.
Absolutely.
And that's not to mention I don't know what the issue is also as far as the player percentage versus coaching ranks or something. I mean, can you imagine? And I don't know. An Indigenous assistant coach, and it must happen at some point. There's so much to learn. Anyway, look, that's. I think we've got right off. Well,
well, as I said, we'll endeavour to have a footy show coming up soon. So we'll
I think so, but I just wanted to. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And well, we got it off our chest, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we did, mate. Well, it's my turn to ask you now. Wanker of the week. Have you got anyone who's been particularly grinding your gears?
I did have one, and it's sort of gone out of my mind. So,
it may come back. Do you want me to go first?
It may come back to me. So why don't you roll yours out?
Mine's sort of. I've got a bee in my bonnet about all this type of stuff at the moment. So, and this tied in.
I have remembered mine, by the way. So go on. Go with yours.
Mine is Pauline Hanson.
Well, mine's not, but go on. Tell me.
Obviously, you probably heard during the week Pauline's comments, which were people locked down in Melbourne due to the C-bomb, COVID-19, are all drug addicts and can't speak English, were her very words.
Okay. Well, I did not hear her exact words, but knowing her history, when I heard that the Today Show had stood her down, I actually joined the dots, if you like. Thought, she said something racially inappropriate. She
is an absolute example of what we're talking about, where it's actually just ingrained in her psyche. She doesn't believe for one moment what she's saying is wrong.
No,
because it's so deeply a part of her.
What has happened for her is her success in politics and therefore in life. She has managed to make a living from being this person.
From being divisive.
And appealing to the idea that for certain people, your life is less than it ought to be, not because of your situation or this or that, but simply because of that group of people. Now, she has quite cleverly, and I'll give her that, moved her target progressively. And I think there's a bit of a, I guess, what's the word? There's a little bit of cleverness about that, because if you think about it, again, when we were growing up, and again, we were probably guilty of it, our Italian mates, Greek mates, etc., would get a bit of stick for being greasy or wogs, etc., right? And now they're almost considered Anglo-Saxon Australians because then Asian immigration started, white Australia policy.
There were new focuses for the race.
Focuses, exactly right. So 70s and 80s, Italian, Southern European immigrants, you might say. And obviously 50s and 60s I can't speak of, but I assume the same. Towards the 80s, the Asians come and whatnot. She gets into them in the 80s and in the 90s when she first came to prominence. And now she's, of course, moved on to Africans, Muslims, etc. She has made a life of it. She's got herself elected by doing it. So I can only assume she believes it, but I do. The cynic in me wonders whether she goes home at night and takes off the mask and is cleverly baiting all these people who, again, perhaps wouldn't consider themselves racist,
This is sounding awfully like a conspiracy theory to me, Bish.
Well, I think you can go a long way telling people what the problem is without offering a solution. And that's what she's done. Now, to me, I reckon she's got the problem wrong. Right? She says the problem is insert latest group of immigrants, but she's never offered a solution, and the solution she offers is not actually viable or actually going to solve the people's problems who think the problem will be solved. A doctor coming here from India didn't cost you your job as a plumber. The fact that you got done for drink driving cost you your job as a plumber. Now, I'm being very generalist here, but I'm just saying people need to reflect inwards and, you know, this immigrant takes my job, but while simultaneously rorting welfare, I might add. No, look, you're very close. My wanker of the week, and once again, I'm quite fond of offering a nameless wanker of the week because that's how I tend to roll, is whoever the hell it was on the Today Show that employed Pauline Hanson. Because at the end of the day, they are culpable in this. When she started appearing on the Today Show, she was not in the Senate. She was a failed politician. She was realistically nobody. They gave her a platform, knowing full well that she would spout things like she has spouted recently, and she has been spouting them forever and a day since they put her on. And now all of a sudden they go, oh, that's a bridge too far.
But don't you think, this is Channel 9, the Today Show, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I think they are.
I believe so.
But Sunrise is 7. So
right, okay. Yep. Okay.
So don't they have, sorry for interrupting, but before you go further, don't they have a history of doing this very same thing? Because they did the very same thing with Sam Newman on Channel 9's The Footy Show.
Yes. These people...
And they're patterns of behaviour. These
people are in a job basically to say those things and then to maybe either issue a mealy-mouthed apology or to say that they got quoted out of context or to generate all this thing. So
it's all that. It's, as you know, it's to drive ratings. They
absolutely.
Essentially a scapegoat employed as a loose cannon who's, and everybody's aware they're going to explode. They've got a limited shelf life.
But this is
I think we're all surprised how long Sam lasted.
Well, but the thing is, they go, oh, well, we'll let that pass. We'll back it off, right? We'll wear the thing. And then, of course, there is still that group out there who go, well, free speech. No, that's not free speech. That's not how it works. You're not free to run around denigrating everybody. You're not free to shout fire in a crowded theatre and cause a stampede. So this is, I'm in a way, I don't blame her because at the end of the day, she's done what she was on there to do.
Yeah, they've given her a platform.
They have given the platform and they have known at some point, well, but she said things as bad as this before. The difference is public sentiment's probably running in a different fashion. If she just turned around and said everyone in postcode such and such is a dog bludger, particularly the ones from they'd go, oh yeah, geez, you're a bit controversial. Well, we take all forms of opinions, etc. No. But the fact is that because people are, I suppose, sympathetic to those people who've been locked up in their apartments, the wind's blowing in a slightly different direction at the moment. And I think Channel 9 got caught on the other side of it. But they knew that this is what they were going to get. So I blame them. So we essentially we're on the same page for Wanker of the Week, but I think we had that. Now the other thing is, I don't know if it's Wanker of the Week, but I find it incredibly distressing that a whole bunch of people living in public housing have essentially been locked up. I just wonder, and I don't have the things. Couldn't there be a better way to do it? Can you imagine looking on the news and finding out, and then looking out your window and finding there's 500 cops outside and you can't go anywhere? That must be really stressful. Can you imagine that if we finished tonight,
yep,
and went and looked out our front window and, geez, there's cops keeping us in our house? So now, again, I don't know what I'd do if I was in charge over there. I don't have the answers, but that side of it is incredibly distressing. And it's only piled on when wankers...
Well, I think you'd be in particular distress knowing full well that you've let your beer stocks run down, Bish.
Exactly right. But again, this is a little bit, and I'm going to go a little bit of white man guilt here. The sort of thing of, that'd be my worry. Do we have enough booze? I can imagine if you're already in public housing,
first world problems.
First suburb problems almost. If you're already in public housing and maybe living from paycheck to paycheck or payday to payday, and also perhaps even, on a very limited income, to sort of be told that you don't even have the chance to get to the shops, even if you have the money to stock up. To me, that's an absolute... Now, like I say, I don't know how they could have done it better. Clearly, everyone is making this up as they go along. But welcome to Brian, and Brian's made the comment there, already marginalised as it is. So, yeah, they've had a tough time of it. And throw it in, there's Australia's national bigot bagging them on free-to-air television. All the while they're wondering how they're going to get their medication and feed their children. So, yeah. It's, anyway, that's...
Well, that's so, we're on a similar page there. So, conspiracy theories, mate. What do you got going in the world of conspiracy theories?
I did have something here too, mate. I'm very forgetful lately, I have to say. It must be the mind control.
You know what it is? I think it's that 12.8% beer you're probably drinking at the moment.
It's probably not helping, I have to say. I'm about halfway through and I'm starting to...
Well, let me jump in, mate, because, as I said, I'm sticking with my theme of Indigenous along. So I tracked this up today, which was quite important. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one. So, conflicting theories of Mungo Man.
I've heard of Mungo Man, yep.
Yeah, so really there was some theories around that, in fact, Aboriginal Australians were not our very first people, occupants of this land, is that Mungo Man was.
This is, yes.
So let me read this. This is some info that I found today. So basically, essentially, they have debunked the theory, but the work refutes an earlier landmark study that claimed to recover DNA sequences from the oldest known Australian, Mungo Man. It just sounds good, doesn't it, Mungo Man?
Mungo Man. So what?
So I wonder, do you think he had a cape?
No. I think he had a long face, though. I'm guessing a long face. I want to. Yeah. Yes.
Maybe a loincloth.
A loincloth. Well, maybe he just walked around naked, like Steel Sidebottom.
No, him exactly like Steel Sidebottom. They might be related. Him and Mungo Man.
Half naked. I'm still trying to ascertain which half.
Yeah, well, maybe his surname might shed a little.
Just
so this earlier study was interpreted as evidence that Aboriginal people were not the first Australians and that Mungo Man represented an extinct lineage of modern humans that occupied the continent before Aboriginal Australians. Scientists from Griffith University's Research Centre for Human Evolution recently used new DNA sequencing methods to reanalyse the remains of Mungo Man from the World Heritage listed landscape of the Willandra Lakes region in far western New South Wales. Okay. Professor Lambert,
where that was,
said it was clear that incorrect conclusions had been drawn in relation to Mungo Man in the original study. The sample from Mungo Man, which we retested, contained sequences from 5 different European people, suggesting that these all represented contamination. So at the same time, we reanalysed more than 20 of the other ancient people from Willandra. We were successful in recovering the genomic sequence of one of the early inhabitants of Lake Mungo. That's hence name Mungo Man, Lake Mungo. A man buried very close to the location where Mungo Man was originally interred. By going back and reanalysing the samples with more advanced technology, we have found compelling support for the argument that Aboriginal Australians were indeed the first inhabitants of Australia.
So, do you think that conspiracy theory would happily be promoted by those that don't, I guess, want to acknowledge the first Australians, or do you think that's...
Of course, do you know what? We could very easily set up a conspiracy theory. It could come from a mining magnate wanting to protect their land, so because they feel as though, they don't want, obviously, their exploitation of the land for minerals to be compromised by giving the land back, by acknowledging and giving the land back to its rightful owners. So potentially that could be something there, Bish.
I have seen that sort of theory posited that there were perhaps a group of people here prior, but really it's the people who were running the show when we got here that are probably the most important in that respect. So sorry, that's my dog possibly barking at no one. So no, that's a good one. And you did mention you were right on theme today. So yes. No, I'm sorry, I cannot remember what mine was. I really have to start writing them down because I'll see things during the week, and so these are really good. Although I will point out, and I can thank Jeff Hansen for this. I think how people comment on a page, and you then see it on your Facebook thing. Jeff Hansen commented about the availability of 5G in his area from an Optus page, and I just chose to read the comments, and there are some seriously misunderstood or people who don't understand science, full stop, on the internet, and some serious, like a serious anti-technology bias. Okay, so this is something I want to talk about. Most conspiracy theories assume that somebody is trying to do you harm, right? That some part, it's the government or a secret society or whatever. So realistically, we could probably get down to there's probably only a half a dozen real conspiracy theories, and everything else is almost a variation on that. Maybe. I don't know. I have to do more research. But why is it that we find it so easy to distrust, particularly science, which actually has to be proven? What do you reckon that is?
I think it comes down to certain things in society, such as this technology being one. I suppose it almost trends. There's trends in disputing or I suppose it almost, people get riled up about it, don't they, almost?
I think we're all looking for something to be angry about. Let's not.
Yeah,
Let's not
and
put ourselves from that.
direct our frustrations at things, and they're pretty easy things to be frustrated at.
Yeah, I guess so. But I just, like I say, reading into a few of them, there does seem to be this distrust of this, distrust of that. Bill Gates cops an absolute hammering. Now, having used Windows in the past, I can understand people hammering him for making a fortune off us from some pretty substandard software. But they mainly appear to hammer him for essentially doing good works.
Yeah, well, for being successful. But yet again, as you said earlier, come up with a solution. If you're not able to come up with something better that's going to rival Microsoft.
Well, but here's the thing, though, right? No, but you have a look at this, and we'll go back to old mate Pete Evans here a little bit. And I have been extremely cynical tonight, so apologies to people because, as you know, I'm usually a trusting, bubbly person. But a lot of these things stem from don't trust, say, Big Pharma, as an example. Don't trust your doctor. Oh, but by the way, I have a solution that is basically scientifically unproven, and that'll cost you $1,000. Sign here. And so, again, am I so cynical? Yeah, a bit like the Pauline Hanson example. Do these people go home at night, take off the mask a little bit and say, well, I'll take my antibiotics and my vitamins or whatever. Pete Evans is an example, right? And maybe even eat a loaf of bread or whatever it is that he doesn't do. Yes. And my daughter just said, does Pete Evans secretly consume weed? That's what I'm driving at here. So I'm being the cynic here and wondering whether they're portraying this persona to all their followers just for the dollars. I mean, is that it? Is it just the only conspiracy is money?
No, I think it is because you do see a lot of people are only too willing to invest in blind faith, rather than, I suppose, follow on to tried and trusted methods where they feel as though there is a chance that they are maybe getting chipped. I don't fully understand it. I'm talking out loud here and trying to make sense.
Yeah, no, well, I'm the same. I'm trying to get the idea. Why is it that look?
Eat the rich.
Shush. I can understand why some people go for these things. As you know, like, mate, let's use you as an example, right? You've had an issue with your hip for a little while now. Now, fortunately, through the magic of medical science, there is a solution. But let's say for whatever reason, that solution is not satisfactory or whatever. But you're getting desperate. You want to run, you want to not be injured. You could arguably become vulnerable to the idea that something's going to work. It's a little bit like, what's
like a placebo almost,
or just the desperation.
Placebo. It's almost a placebo thought, isn't it?
Well,
where you're almost finding something and you're almost convincing yourself that this is going to be the silver bullet.
You want to believe it. So now I can't tell you, and again, we'll swing to another example wildly here because that's how I roll. But, and let's face it, loose lips do sink ships. a lot of people say to me, well, conversations you've had over the years, how many people have said to you, how could people have been stupid enough to vote for Donald Trump?
Mm.
Right? How many times do you reckon you've heard that? If you had $1 for every time you heard that, how big would your house be? Substantial, right? But what he did, and this is a little bit of the Pauline Hanson situation, he told people what they wanted to hear, right? Shush you. If you were working if you were an employed coal mine worker in wherever, we're going to start mining coal again because coal's great. Now, those people have heard for years why coal is finished, right? They're out of a job, blah, blah, blah. The coal mine's closed down and, that's what's been happening to those people for years. But if he turns around and says it, you know that every politician probably for the last 20 years that's been through your town has said, no, well, we can't do that anymore. It's not viable, whatever, right? One politician comes through and says, yeah, we'll do that, right? You know in your heart that it's not true. But you go, he said it and I want it to be true. Got nothing from these other guys who told me they couldn't do it. So I'm wondering if there's this innate want to believe.
Sure.
So, and I'm wondering if that's where the success of Pete Evans.
Well, that's part of the blind faith and hope, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that positive nature where people want a result, and sometimes there might not be a result, but they're going to damn find one, or they're going to create one.
Yes, yeah, I think so. Or yeah. And if somebody tells them it can be, then
that's good enough for them.
Absolutely. So yeah, look. So my wondering on this week is, why do we believe in conspiracies? And I think there's one. Is there any that you want to be true out of interest? Have you ever heard one where you go, I so wish that was true?
It's true. Can't think of anything that comes to mind. I'm sure there is.
I've got a story that I wish was true. Can I tell you that one?
Sure.
Have you heard of Alan Turing?
Who?
Alan Turing.
Alan Turing.
Alan Turing. Turing. So have you seen the movie The Imitation Game?
No.
With Benedict Cumberbatch, or whatever his name is. I suggest you watch it, right? So the story is about a man called Alan Turing who essentially, along with maybe Charles Babbage, invented the computer. So basically in World War II, he was a brilliant mathematician. He was assigned to a place called Bletchley in the UK, and he developed essentially a computer to help crack the Enigma code, right? Which, by all accounts, shortened the war massively because the British pretty much knew a lot of Hitler's movements as a result. Now, he was a gay man, a homosexual, and which was, of course, illegal at the time. And after the war, despite his effective status as a war hero, because it was top secret, he was charged with the offence of homosexuality and chemically castrated. And he committed suicide by eating a cyanide-laced apple, apparently, right? Now, the story goes that when Steve Jobs was coming up with a logo for Apple Computer, or when he's looking to name his computer company, he named it Apple as a result of that story, right? Now, when his biographer relayed that story, which had been legend on the internet for years, Steve Jobs' response was, I fucking wish. That is such a great story. Unfortunately, it's not true. He worked on an orchard when he was in uni, and that is why he named Apple. But that is one, maybe not a conspiracy theory, but that is one story I wish was true, just like Steve.
Yeah. You know what? Let's raise that next week. I'll get back to you with one for next week, I'm sure.
You look at some and you go, I wish that was true. I want that one to be true. I can't think of one other than that, but I do wish that was true because I think that is a fantastic story. But recommended watching for those who haven't seen the film, The Imitation Game. Fantastic movie. And true. Well, how true a movie is, let's not go there. But the story itself is both inspiring and sad. So,
well, before we go and rate our beers, I've just got to make mention of how well your beard is coming along.
It's taken some work, I've got to say, but
but perseverance is paying off.
Well, it has, but it's reached the stage now where it requires almost as much maintenance as shaving. And the whole reason for sort of getting one was to not have to do that shaving.
You've got to get through that. So when you get to my stage, it's clearly not the case.
Well, I don't know how far I'm going to get with that. I don't know what
time will tell. I don't want you to give up the ghost. I mean, going is going to get tough. I mean, it's a bit like a running program. You know, the beginning of a running program, your coach has you just doing some easy Ks. You're feeling okay. You know there's going to be a time where you're going to be having to hit the hard yards. You've got your intervals and your fartleks and the rest of it coming up. Your long runs are getting longer. And that's the time when a lot of people just give up the ghost and they drop off. But mate, you've got to stick with it because I can see the goods are coming. The results aren't far away.
I think they're there. Yeah, but like I say, the big disappointment is that the work has actually not decreased. It's just a different kind of work.
But you know, just looking at you and I, we're almost like the Australian version of the Proclaimers. Do you think?
Well, who knows have the Proclaimers got any hair left?
Well, I don't know. But they had glasses.
They did. They were round glasses because that's what we wore in the 80s, wasn't it? Round glasses.
I didn't wear glasses and my vision was fine back in the 80s.
Well, I have to say, I've been wearing glasses or contact lenses since 1983 and I'm a little bit over that too. But unless I want to just walk around bumping into things. Which
you'll be doing tonight after you finish.
Once again, I'll take it back. I think I made. Jeez.
Well, mate, what do you rate that?
What do I rate it? I'm going to go pretty high. I'm going 4.5.
Yeah, wow.
The taste.
How did you find the high alcohol content?
Well, I can feel it having a little effect, and I mean you have to realise I do have a fair tolerance built up through years of practice. But initially, the alcohol taste in it, you go, "Ooh, that's." But as I've gone through it, it's fitting with the drink. The drink has got a nice sort of burnt taste to it. It's and I think it's a like again, you wouldn't want to drink too many of them, obviously, but it's a nice example, a sipping drink, obviously. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Because some drinks you go, oh, that was too.
Yeah.
But no, a nice sort of toasty flavour and.
Yeah.
No, I quite enjoyed it. So I'll go 4.5. I think it's pretty good. What about you?
This is probably a polar opposite of yours. It was a very gentle 4.5, which is probably the lightest alcohol beer I've had in quite some time, to be honest. But it was very, very easy to drink it. It was a pleasant enough drink. It's probably something you could have many of.
So just out of interest, did you buy a 4-pack or a 6-pack or just the single?
I just bought the single.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't that invested in it. So, So, and you know what? I'm reasonably glad that's all I did, because the other ones will probably sat around in the fridge until someone came to visit.
Right. So okay. Out of 5, how are we looking?
Look, I'm going to probably give it a 3.
3.
Yeah, it's not a terrible beer. It's a nice beer, and you'd be happy enough drinking it if there wasn't too much on offer. You're going to drink it, and you're probably going to drink a number of them. But I'm not going to seek them out of the bottle shop.
So not quite the 150 lashes that Brian was suggesting you might get hold of, but
no, that's right.
But something a little better, which I don't mind 150 lashes. I think that's a pretty tidy beer for a mass-produced beer. Again, you know what you're going to get. But just before we do go, and we are running out of time here, but just on beers, there was a bit of a debate on Perth Beer Snobs this week about price of beer. We had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about, I saw a $45 can or something ludicrous. Where do you think is reasonable?
For a can?
For a single can of something you'd like to drink.
I think personally, I think anything over $8 for a can, I think is getting a little bit enthusiastic, I think, when it comes to pricing. So I think anything sort of around the $8 mark, I'm pretty comfortable paying if you think it's going to be a good beer. But you've got to bear in mind too, the size of the cans is dramatically different. This is only a 330 ml.
Yeah, well, this was the 500.
That's right.
And I don't recall what I paid for it because I've now drank it. No, but I bought it amongst some other cans, which is why I couldn't.
Yeah, I think this one might have been $6, $5.50. I can't remember either, to be honest. But generally, if it's anything under $8, I won't even pay too much. It's only when things are you're sort of getting up towards the 8, 9, 10s and north of that, you think, oh, okay, well, this needs to be either a very special beer or someone's pulling my leg.
Yeah. And just on another factor, again, referring back to Perth Beer Snobs, how did you rate your Biggie Juice?
Oh, look, I liked it. I know a lot of people are huge on it. I wouldn't say I'm huge on it. I'd probably give it a 4. So, yeah, it was a good beer and I'd buy it again. I'm interested to try it off the tap because that's what I'm hearing from everybody is that it's much better on the tap than it is in the can. So I'm going to actually try and seek it out on the tap.
I think that's true for all beers.
Yeah. But
also there's a couple of things. Drinking it out of a glass is obviously a step above, straight out of the can.
Well, I always drink out of a glass, but to be honest, I found it a bit sharp for my palate. Like it was very, very mouthy. As I think I compared it to almost, even though it didn't have the flavour of a pineapple juice. You know how when you drink pineapple juice, it leaves that really.
Oh, look, even the dirty biggie that's obviously everyone's talking about at the moment was, it's very
almost acidic, almost.
Well, but it's Neepers. It is a Neeper, I guess. Is that fruit juicy?
Yeah,
it's juicy. And the fruits are coming through it. I really like it, but
I still far prefer the seasonal Neeper.
That's what.
That is, see, when I'm comparing Neepers, I'm comparing it against that. And
what I'll say in its defence, right? And you know, a lot of talk about this as well, and I won't bang on about it because I've already had things that have gotten my goat this week. But if we talk about feral as a thing, grapefruity, I don't know about that. Maybe. If we talk about feral, the great thing about it is you walk into any pub almost in any suburb, and you're possibly going to find a feral beer as the craft beer option because that's how it is.
Yep.
And you go, okay, well, all right, you're not going to get a seasonal everywhere because they're small. You're not going to get a blaster everywhere. but feral is kind of that midpoint in between that you're going to get it somewhere.
It's almost that conduit between mass-produced beers and craft beers.
It is that halfway between. It's not quite Corona or export, and it's certainly not that sort of thing where you've got a 1 can limit on it at the shop. It's in between, and I think that's you need that because you can't always you can't always be forking out $22 a can. You'd rather
and you can't have everybody on a pyramid. Not everyone can be at the pointy end,
No, exactly right. No, so I think it's that great spot. I'm going to talk to you about that, Brian. Grapefruit bitter finish on Dirty Biggie. I don't get that. All right.
Yeah, we'll have to try that later.
Well, the simple situation there is I'm going to have to drink more Dirty Biggie. Now, next week, we're all tasting export. That's the rule.
Next week we've got the so grab yourself a can of Bush Chook, but also a craft beer as well.
Well, no, just export only. Get a 6-pack.
Okay. Done.
Maybe, I don't know. No. The rules. Anyway,
we better wind this
up. We're going to try export. We're going to try and get a guest. So if anyone hasn't been on that wants to be on, we're also chasing up some guests from further afield.
Yes, as long as you're prepared to drink a can of Bush Chook, you're more than welcome to.
So if you don't want to drink Bush Chook, don't come on next week. Don't watch next week. Put up a picture of what you've been drinking. Apparently that's hard to do, so I've got to look at the page about that. Now, the other thing is, and I will talk to Shinno about this later, but now that the lockdown is nearly over, it's time to organise the Bish and the Beard catch-up.
Yep.
So
you know what we'll do, Bish, I think, is let's do a poll on the page.
Go on.
Yeah. So we'll set this up in the coming days. So I think we already sorted out we're going to go and we're going to see Maddie Trent. We'll organise a day up and see Maddie up there in the Swan Valley. But maybe we'll put a bit of vote on. You and me will talk. We'll select a few potential days and dates, a few potential times, and then we'll put it to everybody and see, number one, who would like to come, how many would like to come, and what day is the preference.
And see what we can sort out. Yeah, absolutely. And also, just while you're on, Brian, to save me messaging you, we do still need to catch up for a beer, which maybe Shinno, you and I will do.
Absolutely.
This coming week.
All right, mate.
We'll talk about that later. Fantastic to talk to you again. I am starting to stumble my words.
Is Tracy going to go and tuck you in there, is she?
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't know. It's all good.
Okay. Well, enjoy your run tomorrow. I'll be interested. I'll be tracking you on Facebook and just see exactly how well you've recovered. And I'll actually have a look through your data and see if there's any areas you've had to pull over, one for a toilet stop or two for a chuck.
I have to tell you now. Again, this is running well over time. I have not thrown up from a hangover in, I reckon, nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Anyway,
so we'll work on that.
If people can top that. All right, fantastic. Good to see you. Right, we'll see you next week.
See ya. All right.
Hang on a sec.
All right, mate. That was good. So shoot us through your pick